There are 6 things men who truly attract have already understood, and most men still ignore. If you don't internalize them, it doesn't matter how hard you try. The 5th is the most dangerous because it determines whether she sees you as an option or as background noise. Most men believe attraction is created by doing something right, by saying the perfect sentence, by choosing the correct moment, by explaining themselves clearly enough. That belief is wrong. Women don't lose attraction because of what a man says. They lose it long before, when his body starts asking for permission without him realizing it. The mistake doesn't live in language, it lives in posture, in breathing, in rhythm, in the way his eyes move too fast, searching for approval before meaning. Desire doesn't collapse in conversation, it collapses in the body first. A shallow breath, shoulders slightly pulled inward, a voice that rises at the end of sentences, unconsciously asking, "Is this okay?" A presence that tries to adjust instead of holding its ground. And while the man is focused on saying the right thing, something invisible is already happening. Respect dissolves. Tension disappears. Attraction shuts down, quietly, without explanation. Today you're going to see a silent mechanism most men never notice, a law that players don't explain, they embody, a hidden dynamic that decides who leads and who is always reacting. Before we go further, answer this honestly, not to me but to yourself. Have you ever felt like you did everything right, said the right words, behaved correctly, and still watched her interest fade without understanding why? Write it in the comments. That moment is where awareness begins. The man who doesn't see it. The average man doesn't fail because he is weak, bad, or incapable. He fails because he operates from reaction. He reacts to silence, reacts to delayed replies, reacts to shifts in tone, reacts to the fear of losing. And the moment a man reacts, his internal axis fractures. He starts explaining himself unnecessarily, clarifying things no one asked about, smiling when he doesn't feel it, filling space because silence feels threatening. His body loses weight. His presence becomes light. His rhythm speeds up, while hers slows down. This is where most men misunderstand attraction. It's not lost because of what you do. It's lost because of how your internal order collapses while you're doing it. The first thing a player understands, how to sell himself without looking like he's selling a man who knows what he's doing, doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't explain who he is. He doesn't define his value. He positions. He understands that selling himself isn't about talking, it's about occupying space naturally. His body doesn't invade, but it doesn't retreat either. His voice doesn't push, but it doesn't hesitate. His presence doesn't chase, it remains. While other men try to impress, he stays grounded, and that groundedness sends a brutal message without words. I'm comfortable being who I am, even if you don't like me. That single signal changes everything. Because the moment a man stops trying to convince, the other side starts observing. The second thing, not being shy and not being anxious. Shyness isn't silence, it's fear of impact. A man with presence doesn't talk more, he distributes his words better. He uses pauses, he tolerates empty space. He doesn't rush to fill silence out of nervousness. He understands something most men ignore. A well-held silence weighs more than 1,000 clever sentences. When others speed up, he slows down. When others shrink, he stabilizes. That contrast creates tension, the right kind of tension. The third thing, approaching without asking for emotional permission. The average man asks with his body, before asking with his mouth. Is it okay if I'm here? Am I bothering you? Do I deserve this space? A man who understands attraction doesn't ask for emotional permission. He arrives neutrally, not expectantly. He doesn't wait for approval before acting. He acts and lets reality respond. That's not arrogance, that's direction. The fourth thing, preselection. When your life is already moving. Women aren't attracted only to the man, they're attracted to the motion around him. A man who has momentum doesn't need to prove value. His environment speaks for him. When his life flows, when good things naturally follow him, his presence becomes validated without explanation. Not because he shows it, but because he doesn't need to. The fifth thing, Success with women is a consequence of success with self, not because women are a prize, but because the same internal axis that creates attraction creates results: direction, self-regulation, decision-making, presence. These traits aren't romantic, they're existential. They shape how a man moves through life. The sixth thing: choosing who he wants, not who accepts him. This is where the real divide appears. The average man chooses from scarcity. The player chooses from internal coherence. He doesn't stay where he's merely tolerated. He stays where reciprocity exists. That choice reshapes his identity. Neuroscience confirms this without long explanations. The human brain responds more to embodied emotional states than rational arguments. Philosophy said it first without studies. Power isn't asked for, it's held. Everything you've read so far isn't technique, it's internal positioning. In the next block, you'll see how this internal axis is built, stabilized, and made irreversible. That's where the real secret lies. There is no magical moment when a man suddenly becomes attractive. No secret gesture, no definitive phrase, no external trick. What exists is something far more silent and far harder to fake. An internal structure that does not collapse when pressure appears. The man who leads doesn't wake up different one day. He orders himself internally until the world starts responding differently. And this is the part almost no one wants to hear, because it's not comfortable, it's not romantic, it doesn't feed fast fantasies, but it's real. The transition from the reactive man to the centered man. The reactive man lives outward. His attention is always displaced. On her response, on the message that didn't arrive, on the shift in mood, on validation that feels delayed. His body exposes him before his mind understands. Short breathing, a subtle lean forward, speech that rushes as if trying to reach safety. Internally, he is asking for something without knowing what, and the world, especially women, feel this instantly. Not because they analyze it, not because they judge it, but because the human nervous system detects emotional instability as a primal signal. The silent law that changes everything. Men who understand attraction live by a different law. They never invest more emotion than they can hold in silence. That single rule changes everything. It changes breathing, it changes rhythm, it changes eye contact, it changes posture. Not because they practice in front of a mirror, but because their center isn't external. When she moves closer, he doesn't expand desperately. When she pulls away, he doesn't collapse. He remains. And that remaining creates something very specific: nonverbal emotional safety. The most common confusion: interest vs direction. Many men believe showing interest equals leadership. That's where they lose everything. Interest without direction becomes pressure, and pressure kills desire. The man who leads doesn't push, he sets rhythm. He doesn't ask everything, he proposes. He doesn't react to every stimulus, he selects. That doesn't make him cold, it makes him stable. The uncomfortable truth about selling yourself. In the first block, you understood that a man with presence sells himself without trying. Now comes the uncomfortable truth. Only a man who doesn't need to be chosen can sell himself well. When a man needs acceptance, his body negotiates. When he doesn't, his body expresses. That difference is enormous. It's never about what he says. It's about where it comes from. Preselection is not social, it's internal. Many men think preselection means other women's status or external proof. That's superficial. Real preselection happens when a man has already chosen himself, when his life has direction, when his time has weight, when his energy isn't available to anyone who asks. Then something strange happens. People start adjusting to him, not because he manipulates, but because he doesn't orbit. The nervous system prioritizes coherence over pleasure. It looks for stability, predictability, someone who doesn't fracture under tension. That's why desire doesn't emerge from chaos. It emerges from sustained internal control. The moment that defines everything. There is a moment that separates men permanently. It's not when she says yes, it's not when she approaches, it's not when she leaves. It's when he chooses not to betray himself to avoid losing her. That moment is invisible. It isn't announced. It isn't celebrated. But it's felt. And once a man crosses that point, something closes forever. He stops chasing. The real secret behind the title. The 6 things a player knows are not seduction techniques. They're not mental tricks. They're not psychological manipulation. They are inevitable consequences of the same root: emotional control, internal direction, sustained presence. He knows how to sell himself because he doesn't explain. He isn't shy because he doesn't hide. He approaches without permission because he doesn't wait for emotional approval. He attracts good things because his life moves forward. He succeeds with women because he succeeds with himself. He chooses who he wants because he doesn't negotiate his value. None of this is performed. None of this is acted. It's embodied. Identity. Closure. This is where fantasy ends and identity begins. From the anxious man to the centered man. From the reactive man to the man who leads. From the man who asks to the man who receives without demanding. Not because the world owes him anything, but because he no longer owes himself to anyone. And when a man reaches that state, respect isn't negotiated. Attraction isn't chased. Power isn't explained. It's felt. If this resonated, you already know this wasn't information. It was reprogramming, a code, a method, a system of internal dominance, not to control others, but to fully inhabit yourself again. Because when your center is solid, everything else organizes itself automatically.